The dawn was quieter than usual that night. Too quiet. Rain tapped softly against the narrow window, each drop tracing a slow, nervous path down the glass. The yellow glow from the desk lamp barely pushed back the shadows clinging to the corners of the room. My roommate had gone home for the weekend, another empty bed, another excuse to pretend I liked being alone. I told myself I needed the silence. That was a lie. I lay back on my bed, staring at the cracked ceiling paint, listening to the hum of the heater kick on and off. My phone rested face down beside me, untouched for hours. No messages, no missed calls, and yet, my chest felt tight, like I was waiting for something I couldn't name. Or someone. Ethan, my best friend, my anchor since freshman year. The person who knew my coffee order, my worst habits, and the parts of me I never said out loud. We were inseparable, gym partners, late-night food runners, study buddies who studied everything except what we were supposed to. And still, there were things I never told him. I shifted on the mattress, annoyed at myself. Stop thinking about him, but the image came anyway. His crooked smile, the way his voice dropped when he was serious, how he always knocked twice before entering my room. A small detail most people wouldn't notice. One I noticed every time. Outside, thunder rolled low and distant. I checked the clock, 11:47 p.m. Ethan had said he'd be out late. Some party across campus. He'd laughed when he said it, eyes lingering on me a second too long. Or maybe I imagined that. I always imagined things when it came to him. That was the problem. I sat up, rubbing my hands over my face, feeling ridiculous. We were both adults, 21, old enough to know better, old enough to control our thoughts. Old enough to ignore the quiet ache that settled between us whenever we were alone. A sound broke through the stillness. Footsteps. I froze. The hallway outside creaked softly, followed by muffled voices fading away. Then silence again. My heart picked up, an unreasonable flutter pounding in my ears. I told myself it was nothing. People walked these halls all night. Still, I found myself holding my breath. Another sound, closer this time. The unmistakable jingle of keys. No. He said he wouldn't be back. I stood slowly, the floor cold under my feet. My pulse raced as the doorknob turned, hesitated, then clicked. The door opened just a few inches. Light from the hallway spilled in, slicing the room in half. A familiar silhouette filled the gap. Broad shoulders, slightly hunched like he was unsure. "Hey," Ethan said quietly. "You awake?" Every thought in my head scattered. I nodded, unable to speak. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The lock clicked into place, loud in the silence. He didn't move right away. Neither did I. We just stood there, rain tapping the window, unspoken words thick in the air. Ethan didn't take off his jacket. That was the first thing I noticed. He stood near the door, rain-darkened hoodie clinging to his shoulders, damp hair curling at his temples. His eyes flicked briefly to the empty bed across the room, then back to me. Like he was counting things that weren't there. Like he was measuring the space between us. "You're back early," I said, hating how carefully neutral my voice sounded. "Yeah." He shrugged, a small, tight movement. "Didn't feel like staying." That should have been enough. A normal answer. A closed door. But nothing about the way he said it felt normal. He didn't meet my eyes when he spoke. Instead, he walked farther into the room, setting his keys on the desk with more force than necessary. The metallic clink echoed. I leaned against my bed, arms folded, trying to ignore the way my heart kept tripping over itself. "Everything okay?" He let out a breath that was almost a laugh. "Almost." Define okay. Thunder cracked outside, closer now. The lights flickered once, then steadied. I suddenly became acutely aware of how small the room felt. 2 beds, 1 desk, too many memories packed into concrete walls. He finally looked at me. Something in his expression made my stomach drop. Ethan was always easy to read, too honest with his emotions, too quick to smile or frown. But now his face was guarded, eyes darker than usual, like he'd closed a door inside himself and wasn't sure whether to open it again. I gestured to the chair by the desk. "You wanna sit?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "No, I can't sit." That tension tightened, coiling low in my chest. Okay, I said softly. Then talk. He took a few steps toward the window instead, staring out at the rain like it had answers. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The heater hummed. A car passed outside, tires hissing on wet pavement. This place, he said suddenly, feels different when your roommate's gone. I swallowed. Yeah. Quieter. He nodded slowly. Too quiet. The words hung between us, heavy with something unspoken. I had the strange, irrational urge to reach out and ground him, to place my hand on his arm, remind him I was real, right here. I didn't. I never did the things I wanted to do. You ever feel like, he began, then stopped. Ran a hand through his hair. Like you're pretending most of the time. My breath caught. Pretending what? That you're fine. He turned to face me again. That you know who you are. There it was. That familiar pull toward dangerous honesty. I forced a small smile. Is this coming from the party, or from everywhere? He said. From watching people be so sure. So loud about who they want. Who they're with. My pulse thudded. And you're not. His eyes locked onto mine. Held. Are you? The question landed too close to the truth. I looked away first. Silence stretched. I could feel it pressing into my ribs, demanding something. A confession. A denial. Anything but this limbo. I thought you were having fun tonight, I said, grasping for routine. You said there'd be people from your floor. Music. Free drinks. There were. His jaw tightened. And there was this guy. Mark. You've seen him around. I nodded slowly. I had. Tall. Confident. The kind of guy who never hesitated. He kept touching my arm, Ethan continued. Laughing at everything I said. Asking if I had a girlfriend. My throat went dry. And I asked. And I lied. He exhaled sharply. Said yes. Something sharp twisted inside me. I hated that reaction. Hated that my first instinct was jealousy, not concern. Why? I asked. Because it was easier, he said. Because I didn't want to explain. Because I didn't want to think. His gaze dropped, voice lowering. Because I didn't want to picture you watching me say something different. The room tilted. Me. I echoed. He looked up, startled, like he hadn't meant to say it out loud. His mouth opened, then closed. The silence that followed felt fragile, ready to shatter at the slightest movement. I didn't mean, he started. No. I said quickly. You did, and it's fine. I just didn't realize I was part of the equation. You're always part of it, he said quietly. The words sent a chill down my spine. Thunder boomed again, rattling the window. The lights flickered a second time, longer now. When they steadied, Ethan was closer than before. I hadn't seen him move. Do you ever think about it? He asked. Think about what? About us. There it was. No escape. No safe answer. My heart hammered so loudly I was sure he could hear it. We're best friends, I said, automatically. I know, he said. That's not what I asked. I closed my eyes for a brief second, gathering myself. Images flashed unbidden. Late night talks, shared headphones, the way he fell asleep during movies and leaned into me without realizing. I think about losing you, I admitted. His expression softened, something raw breaking through. That's what scares me too. We stood there, suspended between honesty and fear. Between what we were and what we might become if we took one wrong, or right, step. A noise broke the moment. A knock. 3 sharp raps on the door. We both jumped. Ethan took a step back, tension snapping into place. I moved automatically, heart racing, and opened the door a crack. It was Jake from down the hall, eyes glassy, reeking of alcohol. Hey, man, he slurred. You got, oh, sorry, didn't know you had company. No worries, I said quickly. What's up? Just wondering if you'd seen your roommate. He left his phone in the bathroom. He's not back till Sunday, I replied. Jake nodded slowly, squinting past me at Ethan. Cool, cool. Have a good night. The door closed. The lock clicked again. The quiet rushed back in, thicker than before. Ethan laughed softly, humorless. See, always something. I turned to him. You don't have to say anything else tonight. I want to, he said. I just don't know how. He sat on the edge of my bed then, finally, shoulders slumping like he'd been holding himself upright by sheer will. I stayed where I was, a few feet away, unsure which distance was safer. I don't want to mess this up, he said. What we have, what we've always had. Me neither, I whispered. But I also don't know how much longer I can pretend I don't feel this, he added. My chest ached. Feel what? He looked up at me, eyes searching, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen before. That when I'm with you, he said slowly, everything else gets quiet. The rain intensified, drumming hard against the window, like the world urging us forward. I took a step closer before I could stop myself. Neither of us noticed the storm anymore, only the space between us. And how dangerously small it had become. The space between us felt charged, like the air right before lightning strikes. I could hear my own breathing, shallow, uneven, as I stood there, a few feet from him. Ethan sat on my bed, hands braced on either side of his thighs, shoulders tense. He looked like he was waiting for something to happen. Or for it not to. I didn't trust myself to speak. If I did, I was afraid the truth would spill out too fast, too raw, with no way to take it back. You should probably, I began, then stopped. What? Leave. Stay. The words tangled and died in my throat. Ethan glanced up at me, eyes searching my face like he was trying to read a language he'd only just learned. Probably what? I shook my head. Nothing. Silence pressed in again, thick and unbearable. I took another step closer. I hadn't decided to do it, my body moved before my fear could stop it. Now I stood directly in front of him, close enough to see the faint scar near his eyebrow, close enough to notice how his hands trembled slightly. I meant what I said, he murmured. About things getting quiet. My chest tightened. Ethan, I don't want this to be a mistake, he said quickly, words tumbling out now. I don't want to wake up tomorrow and realize I ruined the only thing that's ever felt steady in my life. The guilt hit hard, sharp as a blade. Because I felt it too. Because part of me wanted to grab onto that steadiness and never let go, and another part wanted to push him away before we crossed a line we couldn't erase. What if we already crossed it? I asked softly. He frowned. What do you mean? I swallowed. You don't talk to me the way you talk to anyone else. You don't look at me the way you look at anyone else. And I notice everything. I just pretend I don't. His breath hitched. Why? He asked. Because wanting you feels selfish, I said. Because I'm terrified that if I let myself want more, I'll lose you completely. He stood then, suddenly, so close our shoulders nearly brushed. The movement startled me. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. I don't feel lost when I'm with you, he said. I feel exposed. Like you see me, all of me. Thunder cracked overhead, loud and immediate, rattling the window so hard it made me flinch. The lights flickered, once, twice, then went out entirely. Darkness swallowed the room. Damn it, I muttered, instinctively reaching out. My hand found his arm. The contact sent a jolt through me, electric and undeniable. He went still beneath my fingers, breath catching sharply. For a moment, neither of us moved. The only light came from the storm outside, brief flashes illuminating his face in fragments, eyes wide, lips parted, expression caught between fear and longing. I didn't mean to, I started, pulling my hand back. But he caught my wrist. Not tightly, just enough to stop me. Don't, he whispered. The word landed heavy, intimate in the dark. My thoughts raced. This is it. This was the moment everything balanced on. One step forward and nothing would ever be the same. One step back and I'd spend the rest of my life wondering. Ethan, I said, my voice barely steady, if we do this, if we even acknowledge it, we can't pretend anymore. I know, he said. And you can't unfeel it, I added. I don't want to, he replied. Another flash of lightning filled the room, freezing us in stark white light. I saw the truth in his eyes then. Not confusion, not curiosity, certainty. The power went out completely, no hum of the heater, no distant sounds from the hall. Just rain and breath and the pounding of my heart. Slowly, like he was giving me every chance to stop him, Ethan stepped closer. Our knees brushed. My pulse spiked. Tell me to stop, he said quietly. And I will. I opened my mouth. No words came out. That was answer enough. He released my wrist but didn't step away. Instead, his hand hovered, unsure, before lightly resting against my side. The touch was hesitant, almost reverent, like he was afraid I might disappear. Every nerve in my body lit up. This feels wrong, I whispered, even as I leaned into him. And right, he murmured. Guilt clawed at me, years of denial, of internal rules and silent boundaries screaming in protest. This is your best friend. This could destroy everything. But beneath the fear was something warmer. Something honest. I lifted my hand, fingers brushing his chest, feeling his heart racing beneath the fabric of his hoodie. He sucked in a breath. God, he said softly. I've wanted to do that for so long. The confession shattered something in me. You never said anything, I replied. Neither did you. Another truth. Another fracture. He leaned in, slowly enough that I could have pulled away. Our foreheads touched first, breath mingling. Time stretched thin, fragile. For a second, I thought about my roommate. About the dorm walls. About the way rumors spread faster than truth. About how easy it would be to ruin this. Then his hand tightened slightly at my side, grounding me. And I realized the real risk wasn't crossing the line. It was living forever on the edge of it. Our lips brushed. Just barely. A spark, soft but seismic. I pulled back instinctively, heart racing. Wait. He froze immediately, eyes searching mine in the darkness. What's wrong? Nothing, I said, then corrected myself. Everything. The moment hung there, unresolved, trembling with everything we hadn't said, everything we were afraid to admit. Before either of us could speak again, the lights snapped back on. Sudden brightness flooded the room, harsh and unforgiving. We sprang apart like we'd been burned, guilt and shock crashing over us at once. Ethan stepped back, running a hand through his hair, breathing hard. I turned away, heart pounding, staring at the wall like it held answers. Neither of us spoke. The storm raged on outside, indifferent. We stood there, on opposite sides of the room, knowing something irreversible had almost happened, or already had. And the question hung between us, louder than thunder. We didn't sit back down. That felt like the first rule neither of us said out loud. Ethan moved to the window, standing with his back to me, hands braced against the sill as rain streaked down the glass. I stayed near my bed, fingers clenched at my sides, trying to slow my breathing. The room looked exactly the same as it had an hour ago, and yet it felt permanently altered, like a place you return to after a fire. Too familiar, too fragile. I should go, he said finally. The words landed softly, but they shook something loose inside me. You don't have to, I replied, then immediately wondered if I meant it or if I was just afraid of the quiet that would follow. He didn't turn around. If I stay, I won't think straight. I almost laughed at that. As if either of us had been thinking straight for a while now. My eyes drifted to the bed where he'd been sitting moments ago. The slight dip in the mattress was still there, an imprint of his weight that hadn't had time to disappear. The sight made my chest ache in a way that felt both tender and punishing. This doesn't just go away, I said. Does it? He shook his head slowly. No. A simple answer. Honest. Brutal. Silence stretched again, but this time it wasn't charged, it was bruised. The kind of quiet that comes after something breaks and you're both afraid to move in case it shatters further. I keep thinking about tomorrow, he said, voice low. About waking up and seeing you like always. Laughing. Pretending none of this happened. My throat tightened. And I don't know if I can do that anymore. The confession felt heavier than anything he'd said before. I stared at the floor, watching a drop of water fall from his jacket onto the tile. It spread slowly, darkening the surface. A stupid detail, and yet I couldn't stop watching it. What scares me, I said quietly, is that I don't know which version of us hurts more. He finally turned to face me. His expression was softer now, stripped of tension and replaced with something raw and exhausted. I don't want to lose you, he said. But I also don't want to keep lying to myself. The word lying echoed inside my head. How long had we been doing that? Laughing too hard, standing too close, never asking questions we already knew the answers to. I nodded, once. Yeah. That was all I could manage. He grabbed his keys from the desk, the familiar sound suddenly too loud. I flinched without meaning to. He noticed. "Hey," he said gently. I looked up. "For what it's worth," he added, "I don't regret tonight." My chest tightened again, sharp and aching. "Neither do I." The honesty scared me. He hesitated at the door, hand on the knob, like he was waiting for something. For me to stop him. For himself to turn around. I didn't move, not because I didn't want to, but because I wasn't sure what would happen if I did. "Good night," he said. "Good night," I replied. The door opened. Hallway light spilled in once more, cutting through the room. For a brief second, I saw him clearly, my best friend, my almost, my mistake or my future. Then he stepped out, and the door closed behind him with a quiet, final click. I stood there long after his footsteps faded. The rain continued to fall. The heater hummed back to life. The dorm returned to its routine sounds, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But my heart wouldn't settle. I lay back on my bed, staring at the ceiling again, the same cracks, the same shadows. Only now, every detail felt sharper. Charged. My phone buzzed. A message. I didn't need to check the name to know who it was from. I stared at the screen, pulse racing, thumb hovering just above the display. Whatever he'd written, whatever I read next, would push things forward or pull them apart completely. I took a breath, and wondered if some doors, once opened, ever truly close again. Morning came quietly, too quietly. Pale light seeped through the blinds, slicing the room into thin bars of gray and gold. The storm had passed some time before dawn, leaving the air heavy and clean, like the world had been scrubbed of noise while I slept. I lay still, listening to the distant sounds of the dorm waking up, doors opening, footsteps in the hall, laughter drifting from somewhere far away. Normal life, resuming. My phone rested on my chest. I hadn't opened the message. Fear had a strange way of freezing time. As long as I didn't look, everything from last night could stay suspended, unfinished, unresolved. The almost kiss. The confession. The way his voice sounded when he said he didn't regret it. I finally unlocked the screen. One message. "Ethan, did you sleep?" That was it. No explanations. No apologies. No pretending nothing had happened. My chest tightened. I typed 3 different responses. Deleted all of them. Yeah. Too casual. Not really. Too honest. We need to talk. Too dangerous. I locked the phone again. Classes blurred together that day. I showed up, took notes I wouldn't remember, nodded at jokes I didn't hear. Every hallway felt like a risk. Every familiar laugh made my pulse spike. I kept expecting to see him around a corner, leaning against a wall like always, smiling like nothing had changed. But he didn't appear. By afternoon, the absence felt louder than any argument could have been. When I finally did see him, outside the student center, surrounded by friends, my stomach dropped. He looked the same, too normal, laughing, gesturing, alive in a way that felt unfair. For a moment, our eyes met across the courtyard. The smile on his face faltered. Just for a second. Then it was gone. He looked away. The rejection, intentional or not, cut deeper than I expected. I told myself it was self-preservation. That he was trying to figure things out. Still, the distance hurt. We had gone from everything to strangers in less than 12 hours. That night, I sat alone in my dorm again. Same bed, same ceiling, same shadows, different silence. My phone buzzed once more. "Ethan." I keep replaying it. I don't know what it means. I don't know what we are now. I stared at the words until they blurred. "Neither do I," I typed. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Ethan, I'm scared if we talk, we'll ruin it. And if we don't, we already have." My heart pounded. Outside, distant thunder rumbled again, not close enough to be real, not far enough to ignore. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in my hands, realizing the truth I'd been avoiding. The moment hadn't ended last night. It was still unfolding. Every choice from here on out mattered. Every word, every silence. I typed one final message, hesitated, then sent it. "Come over." The phone went still. I waited, breath held, unsure whether I'd just invited clarity or disaster. The doorknob rattled. The dorm always smelled faintly of detergent and old books, a mix that somehow felt comforting at night. I'd lived here long enough to know its moods, the way the pipes knocked after midnight, the soft echo of footsteps in the hall, the quiet that only showed up when most people were asleep. That night, the quiet lingered too long. Rain pressed against the windows in slow, patient taps, like someone trying not to be heard. I lay on my bed with one arm draped over my eyes, listening to the storm and pretending I wasn't waiting for anything. Pretending my chest didn't tighten every time my phone buzzed with a notification that wasn't his. My roommate had left earlier that afternoon, backpack slung over his shoulder, joking about freedom and empty rooms. I'd laughed along, but the moment the door closed behind him, the room felt bigger. Colder, like it was holding its breath. I told myself I liked nights like this. No expectations, no interruptions, just me and my thoughts. That was the problem. Ethan had been in my thoughts more than usual lately. My best friend, my constant, the one person who knew how to read my silences and still stayed. We'd met our first week on campus, bonded over bad coffee and worse orientation speeches. Since then, everything had blurred together, late night talks, shared secrets, an unspoken understanding that never needed words. And yet, there were things we never said. I rolled onto my side, staring at the empty bed across from mine. Ethan had been here earlier, stretched out like he belonged, laughing about something insignificant. He always looked like he belonged, anywhere, really. That was part of what made him dangerous to think about. I checked the time, 11:42 p.m. He'd said he was going out tonight. A party, loud music, people I didn't know. He'd smiled when he told me, casual, effortless. I'd nodded like it didn't matter. But the silence kept pulling me back to that smile. Thunder rumbled in the distance, low and warning. The lights flickered once, then steadied. I sat up slowly, suddenly aware of how alone I was. Too aware. A sound drifted through the door. Footsteps. I froze, heart stuttering. The hall creaked often, people coming and going, but these steps slowed near my room. Stopped. I held my breath, listening to the rain, the storm, my own pulse. Don't be stupid, I told myself. Then came the soft jingle of keys. The door handle shifted, just slightly, like someone testing it. My stomach dropped. I wasn't expecting anyone. The door didn't open right away. Whoever it was hesitated. I stood, feet cold against the floor, every nerve alive. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind, none of them settling. Then the door finally opened. And the calm routine of the night cracked, quietly, dangerously, into something I wasn't sure I was ready to face.